This interview is a part of the Oklahoma Historical Society's Oral History Program Living Legends collection. This interview was originally conducted on March the 21st, 1958. The identity of the interviewer is not given on this tape. The interviewee is Mrs. Ida Mae, that's capital M-A-E, DeFoe, capital D-E, capital F-O-E, Hardy, capital H-A-R-D-Y. The only location for this interview given in the records is the Grant County Historical Society. This material is being re-recorded on the 10th of July, 1986 for inclusion in the permanent collections of the Oral History Program by Judith Michener. There is a very bad hum on this tape, and we cannot remove it in the recopying process. We have copied it exactly the way it appears on the Living Legends master tape.
Now we have a very interesting interview with Mrs. Ida DeFoe Hardy.
My father and mother were Canadians. In fact, my father was the third cousin of Dr. DeFoe in Canada. I was born in Pennsylvania in 1971, December the 22nd. So I'll be 87 years old in December. I started taking music lessons when I was 9 years old, studied with Professor Fuller in Bradford, Pennsylvania. He was a graduate from Oberlin College, Ohio. And I studied with him for 2 years. Then I had two pupils myself. I was 11 years old, and I've always taught music since then, off and on. I've taught school, but I've taught music all the time. I never had any more lessons till after I was married. And the piano lessons, I had 2 years of voice in Hiawatha, Kansas, where my parents, we moved there. And I taught school. I was graduated from Hiawatha High School when I was 16 years old. And I taught school there for 2 years in the city schools. And that's when I took my voice lessons. Then I moved to Belleville, Kansas. My parents moved there, and I taught school there for 6 years. I was teaching music all this time, too, off and on, you know. And that's where I met Dr. Hardy. We sold our home in Belleville, Kansas, and went to Kansas City. He did study medicine, and I to study music. And after he got his degree, we decided we'd come down to Oklahoma to grow up with the country. We moved to Deer Creek, and we lived there for 8 months. And then we moved over here to Medford. I've been here ever since. While I was in Kansas City, I was accompanist for the Kansas City Symphony Orchestra. The last year that I was there, 1901. When I came down here, I had 2 music pupils the first year. One of them was Emma Swartz, and the other one was Vivian Harburger, a little Jew girl. That's all I had, all the pupils I had the first year. And Doctor drove his horse and buggy back and forth. And let's see. I don't know what else you want me to say. Mrs. Cora Palmer and Mrs. Ed Malloy and I made a concert tour one year. Mrs. Malloy was a violinist, Miss Palmer was a contralto, Mrs. Ed right over at Waukeeta, and my piano. And we went to Jefferson and Enid and Cottonwood Falls and up into Belleville, Kansas, and made a little concert tour that year. Then after that, I went back to Kansas City and studied for, I guess about 6 weeks or something like that for a course, so that people could know that I could play, you know. And then I gave a recital here, and we filled the old Palmer Opera House. And after that, I had no trouble getting pupils. I had a big class after that. But I had to diminish my class. The doctor always made me promise that I wouldn't take more than 20 pupils. And then I diminished it from then on, you know, and just took what I could do and still keep up my own work and my practicing and my housework and be a housewife, you know, too.
Was there any interesting incidents that happened in Kansas City while you were going to school up there?
I can't think of anything especially interesting. Outside of our regular living, I went to, Doctor took me to football games over to in Missouri. We always went to the big football games, and went to all the concerts, heard all the best musicians in the world. The concerts came there, you know, and the operas and things like that. But I don't know anything special that was especially interesting, except that I did accompany the Symphony Orchestra, Kansas City Symphony Orchestra. That was quite a feather in my cap. I don't know if anything else.
Now, what year was it that you came to Oklahoma?
1901.
And can you remember any interesting experiences before statehood?
Any what?
Interesting experiences around the country, around here before statehood?
Oh, let's see. I don't know anything special. The doctor could tell you more interesting things than I could, because he was the one that drove winter and summer and all kinds of weather and everything like that, you know, to practice medicine. And we didn't have pavements, we didn't have cars, or anything like that at that time, you know. And he's the one that had the hardships, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Well, can you remember any stories that he has told you?
No, I couldn't tell him. I couldn't tell any of his stories. I never could tell a story. I never could tell that.
Well, how many students have you had altogether in your teachings, do you think?
I really couldn't tell. I put down a long list of pupils on there that had won first in the state, and second and third and fourth in the state before they ever went to superiors and excellence, you know. They used to just consider first, second, third, and fourth. And I have some pupils who won first over everybody, over El Reno, Tulsa, all these big cities. Harold Reed won first over all of them when he entered. And Henry Gardner did too in his year, and Margaret Adams did. Those are the three that I had that won first over all the cities. Then after that, then they got superiors and excellence. Then I put down a list of pupils that I had. If she wants to pick out any of them, she can, you know. And then I wrote down a long list of pupils who had won superiors and excellence in the tri-state contest and in the state federation contests, as well as over at Stillwater and Norman. So I put that all down. I couldn't tell how many pupils I've had. You see, I really haven't had such an awful lot of pupils, because nearly always when the pupils start taking from me, they'd start taking them when they were younger, and they'd take clear through high school. Well, I didn't fill their place. You see, I just limited my class to 16 pupils at that time. It was 20 at first, and then I limited to 16. Now I'm only teaching about 12. And so if any of them fell out or went to college, something like that, then I'd fill in their place with some others. So I suppose I haven't had more than 400 or 500 pupils probably since I came down here. That sounds like quite a few, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Did you used to go out to where Mr. Ben Strider had his duck shoot out west?
Oh, yeah.
Well, could you tell us some of the things that happened out there, or something interesting that she might like to know?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. We just went out there and had a good time. Every October we went out there for a good many years and hunted ducks, and we didn't do anything. 16 pupils at that time. It was 20 at first, and then I ended to 16. Now I'm only teaching about 12. And so Doctor and I were sitting up on the wagon waiting for John and the rest of them get ready to go. And we looked down where we slept in the tent. We went to the farmers and got a whole lot of straw and hay for our beds, you know. and we had a little oil stove in the tent. And Doctor and I slept over on one side on the hay covered with blankets, and John and his wife slept over on the other side. And we had cleaned that all up and taken the hay out. The doctor looked down, and there was a great big rattlesnake right where we'd been sleeping. He had his gun with him, he shot it, and he brought it into Medford to show people the rattlers. Oh, I shivered after that. I said, I didn't want to go hunting anymore and sleep with rattlesnakes.
About how many years did you go out there?
Oh, I don't know, 5 or 6 probably.
And how long did it take you to drive out there in a wagon?
Oh, I suppose a couple of hours, something like that, I imagine. Near as I can remember. Oh, no. You know, I told you I could remember anything especially interesting now about what happened in Kansas City. It was all interesting to us, but I can't remember anything that was especially interesting then. I remember one thing that was interesting since we came down here, to me, and it might be to some of the public. I got my name in the paper on account of it. I went to on a trip with Mr. and Mrs. Earl Croxton. They used to live here. They used to run the paper here, and they moved to Norman to be there when Victor went to college. And I went down to visit them every once in a while, and we went on this trip. We went on a 7 weeks trip. We went up to Perham, Kansas, and visited with Mr. and Mrs. Ridings in their summer home up there at Perham. And then we went on up into Canada and over into Saskatchewan, down into Yellowstone Park, and what's that other park, you know? There's another park up in there I can't think of. And while I was in Yellowstone Park, we had a box of candy that we were eating, and Ella said that we got there and we saw a bear out on the road. And I said, oh, let's feed the bear. So they said, all right, we got out and we started to feed the bear. And I had the box of candy, and I would throw a piece of candy at him one side of the road. And oh, how that bear did enjoy that candy. And Victor said, and I had to get over on the other side of the room. I'll take a picture of you and the bear together. I've got a picture of it here someplace. And so I put the box of candy under my arm and walked across the road, and the bear went after me. You never should turn your back on a bear. Never. I didn't know that at the time. But he went after me, and he caught me. He just caught me right there on my leg, and he bit through my coat and my dress, and he didn't cut the skin, but there was blood streaks clear up and down my leg that didn't bleed for, I don't know, weeks after that. So I said, Marlene, he bit me. I wasn't scared, but I said, he bit me. And it scared Mrs. Croxton, and she said, Earl, get that. There's a bottle of whole grain alcohol in there out the back of the car. You get it quick. So he got it, and she took a piece of soft cloth, and she bathed it over and over and over, you know. And believe me, I had to be bathed every night after that for some time. I couldn't sit down for quite some time. So when I wrote home about it, and my husband told the paper about it, and the paper was headed, the only woman in Grand County who has had the honor to be bitten by a bear in Yellowstone Park. It's quite a story.
When you first moved to Deer Creek, what kind of house did you live in?
What kind of what?
House.
Oh, we moved into the preacher's house then. It happened to be vacated. It didn't happen to have a Methodist preacher just then, and we moved into his house. And when the preacher came, then we moved into the doctor's office. And we lived there for, I don't know, a month or so. And oh boy, there were bedbugs galore there. And so I went up to, I said, well, Vee, I'm not going to stay here and be beaten up with these bedbugs. And he said, no. He says, I'll tell you what you do. He says, you go on up home to Mother's and stay there until I get things located, and we'll move over to Medford. So that's what we did. And when I came back, he had everything all moved over here. And we moved up to a little house, top end of this street. Then the last house was at north end of 2nd Street. And then we moved down here into this Bickerdike house. And then we bought this house. Been here ever since.
Where did his mother live? Where did his mother live?
Who?
His mother. You said that.
Oh, he's not in Belleville, Kansas. That's where I met him. His
Oh.
father and mother both lived there. His father was a doctor there. He was a graduate from Hopkins University. That's where Doctor got so much of his early training. He'd make drives with his father so much, you know. Doctor was just naturally a doctor before he ever went to school.
Has Medford grown very much since the first time you saw it? Has Medford grown?
Oh, yes, quite a lot. We have all these additions out here. It's grown quite a little bit since then.
Can you remember anything that has changed quite a bit than what it was when you first saw it?
Medford?
Yeah.
Oh, my land.
Anything that stands out in your
We
mind?
have pavements and electricity and cars and, well, I can remember when we saw the first car in Kansas City, and we just stand out on the street and watch that like we used to watch an airplane afterwards, you know. It was such a wonderful thing, you know. We didn't have sewage or anything like that here, you know, at that time. That makes some difference in the town.
What do you think of modern times?
Think of what?
Modern times now.
I didn't get you there.
Modern times, the space age, with flying saucers and planets and things.
Don't ask me what I think about that. I don't know. I listen to the TV over that. I don't know.
Do you like it back in the 1901 and so on better than now?
Oh, no.
You'd just soon have right now.
Oh, no. I think as we progress, we like it better, sure.
I know a lot of
I
times.
often wonder how in the world we ever lived in those days. How we had to work so hard, you know.
Yeah.
Land, we didn't have any of the advantages that we have now. I can remember when over in Deer Creek when I used to, I think that's the only time I ever did my own washing. I borrowed a tub from somebody over there, and I did my own washing over there, and we had to get our ice from some other town. I think they brought us ice from Blackville over to Deer Creek at that time. It was quite primitive.
Who were some of your good friends back then?
In Deer Creek?
Well, here too. Who were some of yours and Doc's good friends?
I didn't stay there very long to get into the intimate friends in Deer Creek. I wasn't there long enough. And when I first came here, the first woman that ever called on me was Mrs. T.J. Palmer and her sister and her daughter. And then her daughter, Cora, Mrs. Wright from Waukeeta, was always my most intimate friend from that time on. Then, of course, in these later years, there's been other friends that have been wonderful to me. But those are my oldest friends.
Uh-huh. Who are some of your good friends now?
Oh, Mrs. Wright and Mrs. Hills and Mrs. Sharp and Mrs. Kennedy and Ruby Lee and oh, well, I've got so many of them I couldn't begin to name them now.
Where did you get the name Ida DeFoe?
DeFoe was my maiden name. DeFoe was my maiden name. Dr. DeFoe, you know, who brought the quintupus into the world in Canada?
Oh, yes.
Well, he's my third cousin. His name was DeFoe, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And by the way, I want Mrs. Palm to know that I have the story of Dr. DeFoe. I have the book, and I'm going to give it to the library. One of my friends has it now, but I'm going to give it to the library because it's just so interesting. And you know, that Dr. DeFoe reminds me so much of Dr. Hardy, of things that he did and the things that he thought, fresh air and all those just sensible things, you know. Remind me so much of Dr. Hardy's work. And I shall give that to the library just as soon as I get hold of it again.
Did Dr. Hardy ever discover any new things in medicine?
I don't know that he did. He was a member of the faculty at the Springs Hospital in Enid for years until he got sick, you know. He was sick here for a long time after he fell and injured his knee, you know. But he had a lot of friends in Enid, and the medical profession all thought highly of him there. I taught a class in Enid. Oh, I guess for a couple of years I went down once a week and had a class before I got a big class here.
Did you ever go to Enid in a horse and buggy?
Oh no, I never was there. We never were there in a horse buggy. Doctor went on the rail, but he was the Rock Island and Santa Fe surgeon, and so they had those roads here, you know. We always went on the train. He didn't have to pay him to go on the train. I had to pay to go on the train, but he never had to pay him to go.
Can you think of any little funny habits he had about medicine, or any kind of little traits that might stand out?
Well, he was always terribly opposed to liquor. He never would give any medicine in the way of liquor. Never would. And after he got sick toward the last, you know, he had a sick spell or two before that. And when one of the doctors would come to take care of him, I know Dr. Duffy came up at one time, and he said, "Miss Hardy, the doctor's taking sick up at his office." And he said, "Miss Hardy, do you have any whiskey in the house?" I said, "Yes, there's a bottle half full of whiskey, a small bottle in the pantry." He said, you get it. We're going to give him 2 tablespoons full of this whiskey. Doctor says, "I'm not going to take any whiskey." And the doctor didn't say anything to it, but he went out and he gave him the whiskey. It's all right, you know, for certain things. He put the whiskey in a bottle and he made him take it. But he was always terribly opposed to anything in the way of liquor.
Can you think of any more things besides that?
Oh, I can't just now.
Now, how many years have you been? You've been teaching music since you were 11?
Since I was 11. I'll be 87 in December, and I've been teaching music ever since then. Even when I was teaching school, I taught music along with it, you know. But I never, after I quit teaching school, then music was my profession. Of course.
Have you ever played in any big concerts in any other towns, like Oklahoma City or Kansas City, a big concert?
Oh, yes, I played it in Enid, but not in Kansas City. I did too. Played it. Well, it wasn't a concert; it was a full dress rehearsal, and they sent me a wonderful acknowledgement. I put that in the clippings that Mrs. Pond received. And then I played at Enid at a big concert that they had at the music club there, medical club there gave, and I played for that, and then I played once down for a piece at the State Federation meeting at Enid. But that's all.
Have you had any piano students that have gone a long ways in the music field?
Yes, I have.
Would you mind telling
I
us?
have 2 that have gone a long ways, and that's the reason I asked you about Leo Lawless. He's the dean of music in this college up here, and I can't think of the name of the town, but I bet Mrs. Palmer knows what it is. If I could hear it, I could tell, but I simply cannot recall the name of that town. And Dorothy Dean Gentry is the head of the organ department at the Tulsa University now. She was one of my best pupils. And she also teaches piano there. And she gives organ concerts all over the state.
I
I have quite a number of people that are successful piano teachers and have large classes. Louise Kalhofer has a large class of piano in Tulsa. Doris Hirschberger has a large class in El Reno. And Christine James, she's a sister of Dr. Lynn's wife, has a large class. I don't know where she lives now, whether it's in Mexico or New Mexico, someplace well from here. She has a large class. And Mrs. Dahlem over here at Waukeeta has a nice class. I don't know how big it is. Well, I've had a lot of pupils that have had successful classes piano.
How many students do you have at present?
12.
12?
Just 12. That gives me a chance to give individual attention to each one. I have each one on my mind. With a big class, you know, it's kind of like grinding them out, and you get tired. I don't get tired at all teaching because I only teach about not more than 4 at a time, you see. So I don't teach Fridays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and just 2 or 3 on Saturdays. I just scatter them out during the week, you know. And I can give special attention to each one, you know.
How long the lessons do you give at a time? An hour, half-hour lessons, or what?
How many lessons do I give at a time?
How long do your lessons last?
30 minutes. Just 30 minutes. Sometimes I can hardly stop with 30 minutes. It runs into 30 and 35, and sometimes 40 when I get awfully interested, you know, if there's not too many, some others coming on afterwards.
Do you have any real promising students at present?
I sure do.
Who are some of your best students?
Well, Karen Kretschmer has quite a bit of promise, and little Randy Freoff, and Karen Wilson, and several of the young ones. Greg Hodges is going to be a good little pianist too, and Sherry Hamilton's going to be. I have some young ones that they're just real entertaining. I just love to teach them because they're so. Well, you know, I guess maybe you saw in the paper last week that Randy placed superior over at Tonkoa, and so did Karen, and Sherry was excellent, and Carolyn Swanson. She has a lot of talent, but she has too many irons in the fire.
Yeah.
Just has too much to do with her basketball and Rainbow. She's a worthy advisor of that, and the band of someone. You know, you just can't do so much work, and anyone thinks you have so many things to do.
Yeah.
And this is her senior year. She has quite a bit of talent, however, and she's won quite a number of superiors and excellence in her time too. But she seems to have less time this year than she ever had before.
Do you ever give your students any special advice that you tell each one of them how to be a success playing the piano, or some little thing that you tell each student?
Tell them how to make success of it.
Well, any little story that you tell them.
Oh yes, I tell them stories every once in a while so that they can see something. For instance, if they're not good readers, if they're real slow, and I have some that are rather slow, they're so careful, and then I tell them, well, you must not play faster, but you must think faster. And then I tell them a story about the man that commuted from his home to the city and went past a lot of boxcars with a whole lot of numbers on. The first time he went past, he only saw one number, and the next week he said he was going to see that whole bunch of numbers. Then he got so he could see 2 or 3 numbers, and before very long he could see the whole thing. And I said, you must do the same way when you read. You've got to see, so you don't stop on one note. See 3 or 4 notes at a time, then see more. Then you'll get so you can read faster. I do things like that. I tell them lots of stories.
Well, I'd like to hear another one. I like that one. Have you got
hear another one?
Yeah.
Well, there's another one that I tell about technique. I said, I have a friend who visited, she's a prominent music teacher in Denver, who visited in Switzerland, and she visited Paderewski's home. And she didn't visit his home, she visited on his grounds, and the caretaker told her that she could sit there and watch and listened to Pedresca practicing. So she sat there and listened to him for about half or three-quarters of an hour, and she said he was practicing on one little run, and he played through, and he played it through with strong, slow fingers over and over and over and over, and then he played it accenting every other note, and then he played it accenting every three notes, then he played it accenting every four notes, and he played it slow for a long time. And she says after a while, when he got through playing that little run that he was working on, he said it just sounded like water dripping. It was beautiful. And I tell them that too. Them, they practice harder on every little thing like that, you see. It's just interesting. Oh, I have to tell them stories every once in a while because they're interested in those things, and it makes quite an impression on them.
Have you got another story that you might tell me? Have you got another one I could hear?
I don't know. I can't think of any right now. Oh, yes, I've got another one that I tell them, too. When they don't practice enough, when they think they have a piece worked up, I'll say, listen, here's a story about Mozart I want to tell you. When he was a little boy, he put 5 dried beans in his pocket. And if he could play his piece through once without making a mistake, he took one bean out and put it on the side of the piano. If he could play it again, he took out another one and put it to the side of the piano. And if he made any mistakes the third time, he put them both back in his play. Listen, here's a story about Mozart I want to tell you. When he was a little boy, he put 5 dried beans in his pocket. And if he could play his piece through once without making a mistake, he took one bean out and put it on the side of the piano. If he could play it again, he took out another one and put it to the side of the piano. And if he made any mistakes the third time, he put them both back in his pocket again. And he had to practice, he made himself practice until he could do that 5 times without a single mistake before he felt like he was capable of playing it in public. That's a pretty good story, too.
Yeah.
One of my real thrills was the airplane trip that I took to California and Seattle, Washington, Everett, Washington. That's Dr. passed on. And he never would get in an airplane. He was afraid of an airplane and afraid of a boat. He never would get in a boat either. And so when I got there to Los Angeles, my nieces were ready to meet me, and I spent 3 or 4 days. That were doctor's nieces, not mine. And I spent 3 or 4 days there and visited a good many important places around Hollywood, the Hollywood Bowl, the Chinese Theater, and that cemetery out there. I've forgotten what it's called. And she showed me all the points of interest there. And then I went up to Seattle, Washington, and when I got in the station at Seattle, there wasn't anybody there to meet me. And oh my, poor little country girl, I didn't know what to do. And I had told them that I was going to arrive on a certain plane, but I didn't. I guess I didn't get the right hour or something or other. Anyway, I went to the station man there, and I said I would like to go to Frank DeFoe's, and he lives. I told where he lived. And I said he was supposed to meet me here, and he's not here. He and his sister and his wife are not here. And so he just took this megaphone down. He says, Frank R. DeFoe wanted at such and such a place. Frank R. DeFoe wanted. Pretty soon here they all came rushing around here to meet me, and I finally was all right. But they had been watching for that plane to come in for quite a while, and then they made the announcement a certain plane would arrive at a certain time, and they thought that was the one I was going to be on. So they've been going around looking at things at the station, you know, that's how they happened to miss me. And when I got to Everett, Washington, my other nephew up there had this, he'd gone out fishing that morning, he knew I was coming, and he said, I'm going to get Ida a fish, whether and all. So there's a picture of the fish up there, you know, that he caught for me that morning out in Puget Sound.
Now, is your name just Ida, your maiden name was just Ida DeFoe?
My Ida Mae DeFoe.
Ida Mae.
Ida Mae DeFoe.
Uh-huh. And you just changed it to Ida DeFoe Hardy.
What?
Now, you just write it Ida DeFoe Hardy now?
Yes, that's well, sometimes I sign my name Ida M. Hardy, and sometimes Ida DeFoe Hardy. They started calling me Ida DeFoe Hardy when I came from Kansas City here, just on account of music business, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it just always did stick, Ida DeFoe Hardy. I think I have a relative in Enid, Dr. DeFoe, who is an optician. There's DeFoes all over the United States, and we're all come from that same branch up there in Canada, you know. So I know when my niece wrote to me, she was writing a book and had a family tree, and I showed a family tree. I had that tree. That's in my book that I'm going to get to the library. And also, there's a coat of arms. I run across that this afternoon. Picture of a man and some Latin phrase under it. You know, I don't know what it means, but it's a coat of arms that I'd have a right to if I wanted to use it.
Uh-huh. Well, I don't know of anything we've left out. I say I don't know of anything that we have left out.
I don't either. I think I told you all I ever knew about myself. Let's see.
I imagine if we think of anything, I can always come back and get a little bit more.
Oh, yes. But I think I told you all the highlights of my existence. I had a brother and lived in Everett. He died, and my niece died the year after I came back from there, after I went out there in the airplane. And the next fall and winter, they both of them passed on. I was so glad that I'd made that trip at that time.
Do you have any relatives right around here?
Around here?
Uh-huh.
No, I don't have any relatives. I'm the only one left in our family. I have nieces and grandnieces, but they're in California, and one is in Hawaii. Teaches in Hawaii. She taught in Africa. No, well, that's one of Doctor's nieces. I get them mixed because I visited some Doctor's nieces too. But the only close relative that I have at all now is one nephew who lives in Seattle, Washington. The only one I have.
This is his picture here with the one that caught the bass for you?
His picture isn't there. That's that's my niece's husband.
Oh.
That one in there. But I have his picture someplace. Let's see, it isn't in this. I don't believe he's in this group at all.
This has been Mrs. Ida Mae DeFoe Hardy on Thursday, March the 21st, 1958.